It seems like every year there's a new format that usually gets everyone really excited. Last year, the now dead Tiny Leaders, and now this year we have Frontier. Now for me, I barely have enough time to squeeze in a few drafts, and after swearing off MTGO, I have even less time than ever to play Magic, so I'm not very concerned about whatever new format may pop up. However, in terms of my night internship here at MTG headquarters, it's pretty relevant. I wanted to get a few things out of the way first before I kind of try to look at both sides of the topic. First of all, it's a new format. Great. Happy to hear about it. Always happy for people to have another way to play Magic the Gathering. The correct amount of Magic the Gathering to play is more. 2, I love Tiny Leaders, but poor ban list management, the format being quickly solved, and what was left being ruined by MTG Finance killed it off pretty quickly. It also seemed to only appeal to basically a subset of a subset, meaning it kind of only appealed to EDH players mostly, and the EDH community is also kind of a niche. I don't know its size bigger or smaller than competitive. It's probably at least equal in size, maybe even larger. But when a format doesn't have widespread interest, it's going to be hard for it to exist. 3, my initial opinion is Frontier will fail for the exact same reasons Tiny Leaders did. It only appeals to a small group of people, and being eternal means it will be solved, and MTG Finance will pillage and plunder the only real reason to play it, which is cost effectiveness. 4, Wizards of the Coast has no real incentive to support the format fully. If a format can't sell packs or supplementary product, why would Wizards of the Coast bother supporting it? And I don't blame them for that. Look at how much work it took the thriving EDH community to get Wizards to support it. And now they basically just get a few cards here or there and a fall product line. It's just good business. It's not whether or not we like the format or not. It's whether or not it affects their bottom line. 5, as hilarious as it would be if the tinfoil theory that this format was simply born to sell thousands of bulk rare siege rhinos that these game stores are sitting on, I highly doubt that's the case. I want to reiterate, I think however you want to play Magic is cool. It's not my job to tell you what is good or what is bad as a format. For some reason, this format seems to be getting a huge groundswell. I can personally attest to an unnatural amount of people leaving private messages and sending me emails and tweeting me to talk about Frontier. And it does stoke the flames a little bit of the conspiracy theorist in me. My tinfoil hat is feeling a little comfortable when I get people who have never emailed me before all of a sudden requesting I do a video on Frontier. Now, could 20 people in the MTG Finance community see this as an opportunity to spike thousands of bulk rares that they might be sitting on? Probably. Are they smart enough to do it? Maybe. But it seems unlikely. It sure is an interesting storyline, though, and I think that's part of why the community seems so divided over just another random format that'll be dead in a year. A big part of the way people feel so strongly is exactly is indicative, or it is telling, in my opinion, that the Magic community does want a new format. Look, if the community couldn't support a new format, nobody would give two shits about whether or not Frontier or whatever new format came out. So I think, looking at it objectively, I think the reason people are so fired up is because it's so close to being what people want, just not quite there. So what's included, in case you didn't see one of the other dozens of videos of people shilling for this format, it's all the sets from Concept here forward, including M15. The format is eternal, meaning it won't rotate, and there's no current ban list. I don't think that means there will never be a ban list, but basically everything from cons forward, including M15, creates a pretty big pool of cards, like an extended standard. Well, right now, it's not a huge block of cards, but in 5 years, it certainly will be. And the sheer amount of buzz around the format, again, shows that there's a real thirst for new ways to play Magic the Gathering, although this one I think might be flawed. Here are some things I don't want to share my direct opinion on. I've shared my opinion earlier that I think play whatever format you want, although I'm on the fence on whether or not this matters at all. But people seem to feel really strongly about the inclusion of fetch lands, and I can see why. When you have some of the top decks out there having 15 or 16 fetch lands in them, how exactly does that result in a format that's supposed to offer an affordable option to standard? It doesn't quite jive. It also creates a bevy of 4-color good stuff decks and all sorts of other problems that kind of come along with fetch lands. So I think I would be a little more interested in it if fetch lands were banned, but I don't really have a strong enough opinion on constructed formats to really say. I mean, hey, maybe if they're there, that's okay. But certainly if you're going to keep fetch lands in the format, don't tell me the format's going to be cheap. People also feel really strongly about where they start the format. So I like the idea of including Theros personally, because I really loved that block, even though it maybe wasn't that popular. But I think Devotion is a really cool mechanic, and it definitely offers some interesting gameplay and interesting new ways to win the game, other than comboing and things like that. Some people, want RTR. I don't know. I guess I'm really interested in what you would think would make Frontier quote unquote better if you don't already think it's the best thing since sliced bread. Or if you would leave it the same, to be honest. I mean, I read about 1,000 comments on the topic, and people seem to be all over the board on gameplay, whether or not it's a good format. And in my opinion, if people like playing a format, that kind of defines it being a good format. I mean, will it be on the Pro Tour? Probably not. Will it be a GPs? Also probably not. Maybe a short period or regionally, but I don't suspect this format would take off that well, and I'm basing it off Wizards' ability to support anything but standard these days. Modern has all but died off in terms of big coverage. People still love playing Modern, that's for sure, and it has its fan group. But Legacy gets hardly any support, and why would Wizards support another format? Why wouldn't they support Pauper, which legitimately offers cheap gameplay and competitive and creative deck design? I mean, I don't think Frontier offers anything financially that Pauper does not. If you're looking for a cheap format, I suggest Pauper. I don't think Frontier is going to stay cheap long. How can Frontier defy the odds and actually stick around as a format? Well, I think with proper management of a banned and restricted list, they can definitely give themselves a better chance of avoiding kind of one of the major things that killed tiny leaders. The other thing is the format has to stay diverse, and it has to take a long time to solve. As with any eternal format, even though we're churning in new sets, the trend will be that the older cards will generally be way more powerful than the new cards, and whatever new cards that Wizards of the Coast puts out just are very unlikely to affect the format in any major way. If it stays diverse and it stays unsolved long enough, it may have a chance. And if it does those two things and avoids being ruined by MTG Finance, and I think the format being solved and being ruined by MTG Finance are like they are parallel tracks, right? Once there is a clear best deck, that deck will get expensive, and MTG Finance will come in and jack up the price, and the format will still have $2,000 decks. Now, I've seen deck lists that have 15 plus fetch lines in them, so they're already out there. But I do like the idea of people being able to play in a longer rotation, especially if it stays casual. I think it has a lot of merit as a casual constructed format, but at the same time, casuals don't really need another format, I don't think. Maybe. It certainly would be interesting, but if we can have a well-managed ban and restricted list, if the format doesn't get solved in 3 months, and if MTG Finance doesn't come in and solve it for us, then I think Frontier's all right. Most importantly, the community has to adopt it, at least with the same passion and fervor as they did with EDH and Commander. They have to be demanding events at their local game store, at GPs. They have to be demanding content from Wizards of the Coast and from other content creators just like me, but blog writers, podcasts, deck brewers, things like that. And they have to sustain this demand for years, not weeks, not months, years. The format may be a flash in the pan and people may have fun with it, and I think that's awesome. But it took Commander a long time to get noticed by Senpai with Wizards of the Coast, and I don't think they're really interested in devoting development dollars to something that really doesn't have any immediate ROI or any effect. Now, you could argue that it would drive the sale of packs, but I think that's doubly like 2 standard deviations away, and I don't think that that's enough to really sway them to back it. Now, I'm not telling you to not play the format, and I'm not telling you to play the format. As I said earlier in the video, the correct amount of Magic to play is more. Essentially, as much as you possibly can without getting burned out, I think is always good. I think having a bunch of formats to play is good. Do I like Frontier? It's fine. I think it's not going to do what people say it's going to do, but that doesn't mean people can't have fun playing it. What I'm trying to do really here is manage expectations and protect you from over-investing. If you have the cards to build a few Frontier decks, go ahead. Just be careful about overbuying or diving too deep in and falling in love too quickly, because you only need to find someone who loved Tiny Leaders and is sad about its dying off. You don't have to look far to find someone who really fell in love fast with something like Tiny Leaders and got burned when it died off. Just be careful. That's all I'm asking. Because remember, as it stands right now, besides the players, the next biggest beneficiary of Frontier taking off is the secondary market. People who are sitting on thousands of bulk priced rares like Siege Rhino, who would love to sell them to you for $8 instead of $1. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm really interested in hearing what you think about the Frontier format in the comments section down below. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again real soon.